Have you ever wondered how women nearly a century ago managed to be so elegant, even without all the technology, cosmetics, and conveniences we have today? How they maintained that charm, posture, and sparkle in their eyes that still fascinates us. In old photographs, the answer lies in a time that changed everything. In the 1920s, a decade when fashion, attitude, and feminine behavior were transformed forever. Today, we're traveling back in time to discover how women of the 1920s kept their elegance every single day. The 1920s were a decade of transformation, a time when the entire world seemed to breathe novelty. After the end of World War I, women began to claim a freedom that had once seemed impossible. They had worked, fought, faced loss, and now they wanted to live, to express themselves, to dress differently. Fashion began to reflect this quiet revolution happening both inside and around them. Before the 1920s, the female body was hidden beneath layers of fabric, tight corsets, and suffocating rules of etiquette. But suddenly, everything changed. Women started cutting their hair short, revealing their necks, something considered bold, even scandalous at the time. The famous a la garçonne haircut was born a symbol of freedom and modernity, and with it came a new attitude, more confident, more relaxed, more self. Clothes lost their volume. Dresses, once long and structured, became straighter and simpler, with dropped waists and flowing fabrics that followed the body's movement. It was the beginning of the silhouette that would define the roaring 20s, elegant, modern, and effortlessly chic. Women wanted to dance, walk through the streets, breathe, and for that, they needed clothes that matched their new way of living. Parties became the stage of this transformation. Jazz filled the air, and the flappers daring young women with sparkling dresses and swinging fringes became icons of the era. They wore dark makeup, long pearl necklaces, and mysterious eyes. But more than that, they carried a silent message. They no longer wanted to live under old rules. They wanted to shine. Elegance in the 1920s wasn't just about clothing, it was about presence. Women began to express themselves with confidence, walking with their chins held high, meeting eyes directly. Elegance lived in gestures, in the way they held a cigarette, crossed their legs, or smiled subtly. It was a kind of charm that blended freedom with mystery, something that couldn't be bought, only cultivated. At that time, makeup also gained importance. Red lipstick became a symbol of boldness. A touch of powder lightened the face, and dark eyeliner made the eyes more expressive. It was both a form of expression and a quiet rebellion. If before a woman had to be discreet and submissive, now she became the protagonist of her own image. But 1920s elegance went beyond parties and appearances. It was part of everyday life. Women learned to balance simplicity with refinement, even in daily routines. A perfectly tied scarf, a well-fitted hat, a soft fragrance, small gestures that expressed self-care and confidence. Even with limited means, they knew how to turn the ordinary into something special. In big cities like Paris, London, and New York, fashion became the mirror of a new woman, independent, curious, and connected to the world. Coco Chanel, one of the most influential figures of the time, simplified women's wardrobes with comfortable fabrics and practical cuts. For her, elegance meant freedom, and her creations proved that less could truly be more. But the influence of the 1920s wasn't limited to high society. All around the world, ordinary women began adapting the style, sewing their own versions of the dresses seen in magazines. Women's magazines flourished, teaching beauty tricks, haircut styles, and ways to carry oneself. It was a new ideal of femininity being built, no longer based on submission, but on choice. There was something captivating about how women of that decade lived their elegance. It wasn't about having much, it was about how they carried themselves, with grace and confidence. The way they adjusted a hat or walked through the streets with poise showed that elegance wasn't luxury, it was attitude. It was the visible expression of a newfound sense of independence. Even amid the difficulties of the post-war years, women found ways to shine. They reused fabrics, improvised accessories, made their own clothes with creativity and flair. Scarcity wasn't a limitation, it was an invitation to be inventive. And maybe that is why 1920s fashion continues to inspire us today. Because it was born out of courage. That decade marked the beginning of something much greater. The idea that elegance docenti depends solely on what you wear, but on how you live, on how you see the world, how you move, how you express yourself. The women of the 1920s didn't just create a new style. They created a new way of being. They showed that true elegance lies in the freedom to be yourself. That beauty flourishes in authenticity. That fashion can indeed be a quiet revolution. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson the 1920s left us. Elegance ISNT. About seeming perfect, S about having the courage to reveal who you truly are, with grace, confidence, and truth.